welcome to today's Explainer. We're going to unpack something absolutely fascinating today. So I want you to just picture this for a second. It is 1923, and we are standing inside the incredibly luxurious Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago. Gathered around a dinner table are some of the most powerful, successful, and frankly, wealthiest men on the entire planet. It's this incredible scene, right? Just full of pure opulence and this feeling of absolute invincibility.
Between the guys sitting at that table, they literally controlled more wealth than the entire United States Treasury. Think about that. But fast forward exactly 25 years later, and their lives had ended in total tragedy. 4 of those men actually took their own lives. 2 ended up in prison, and 1 died completely broke. And here's the kicker, the thing that really catches you off guard. They didn't lose their fortunes just because the stock market crashed. Thousands of everyday, ordinary people survived that exact same crash and rebuilt. No. These titans of industry had something most of us spend our entire lives chasing, vast, unbelievable sums of money, and it still wasn't enough to save them.
Okay, let's dive into this, because it brings us to a kind of uncomfortable but absolutely vital question. If money alone doesn't create wealth, what on earth does? Well, it turns out there's a hidden code. And no, it's not a conspiracy theory, and it's not insider trading. It is a very specific, fundamental way of thinking that self-made billionaires use to build, and more importantly, keep lasting wealth. It's the ultimate line in the sand between those who build true architecture and those who just make a bunch of money only to lose it all. And today, we're going to uncover exactly what that code is.
To really get this, we first have to look at why most people stay financially stuck. Just look at lottery winners. A shockingly high percentage of lottery winners end up completely broke within just a couple of years of hitting the jackpot. Why? Because sudden money doesn't magically fix a chaotic relationship with finances. It actually just amplifies the chaos. They don't have a system to hold on to it. But then, you contrast that with someone like Ronald Read. He was a totally modest schoolteacher and gas station worker in Vermont, and he quietly built an $8 million investment portfolio by the time he passed away. Ronald Read wasn't secretly outsmarting Wall Street. He simply refused to play the same losing game everyone else was playing.
You see, that losing game is literally driven by our own biology. Behavioral economists call it the hedonic treadmill. Our brains just aren't wired to manage abstract numbers on a screen. Instead, we're wired to look for immediate signals, things like status, comfort, immediate safety. And because of this treadmill, your expectations rise exactly as fast as your income does. It's crazy. This is exactly why a person earning 50 grand a year and someone bringing in 500 grand a year can somehow both feel equally broke. They're both just constantly chasing these fading emotional highs, totally unaware that the finish line keeps moving further and further away.
Let's move to Section 1 and see how this builds. The invisible rules of money.
So while most of us are hyper-focused on the visible rules of money, things like our salaries, every financial system actually has invisible rules. And the very first invisible rule is that wealth is not what you earn, it's what you don't spend. Think about it. Income is super visible. You see the paycheck, the designer watch, the luxury car, but wealth is invisible by design. It's the money that was never spent. It's sitting quietly, just compounding in the background. This is exactly why Warren Buffett still lives in the exact same modest house in Omaha that he bought way back in 1958. He doesn't feel the need to flex luxury because his entire philosophy is built on knowing that visible wealth and real wealth are almost complete opposites.
And this brilliantly illustrates the second invisible rule. Mathematically, time is just far more powerful than skill. Take a look at this. A totally mediocre investor who just happens to start at age 25 will mathematically out-earn a brilliant, high-performing investor who waits until they're 40 to get started. Why? Because compound growth is exponential. It's not linear. Those early years, they do almost none of the visible work, but they are doing absolutely all of the invisible heavy lifting.
Which brings us to the actual code billionaires follow. And honestly, it goes directly against most mainstream financial advice. Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's brilliant partner, had this ruthless but beautifully simple philosophy. Avoid stupidity before you pursue brilliance. Munger knew that financial disasters aren't usually just a stroke of bad luck. They're repeatable, predictable errors driven by stuff like envy, overconfidence, and impatience. The absolute foundation of true billionaire wealth isn't finding the next genius stock pick. It's protection before growth. It's making absolutely sure you don't blow up the wealth you already have. And you see this discipline everywhere when you look at history. John D. Rockefeller tracked every single expense obsessively, even after he was unimaginably rich. Andrew Carnegie? He obsessed over cost efficiency long after his steel empire dominated the entire globe. And they did this because they intuitively understood that control is the actual currency of wealth. Competitors could absolutely copy Carnegie Steel products, right? But they could never, ever copy his rigorous discipline. Losing control of your spending is literally the exact same thing as losing your income.
Moving on to Section 2, Psychology versus Income.
If control matters way more than income, well then the real obstacle is actually inside our own heads. The investor Naval Ravikant makes this great point that wealth is the byproduct of building things that work without your constant presence. And psychology dictates everything here. People who treat money like a scoreboard for their self-worth end up making disastrous decisions. They get trapped in status spending, buying things for an audience just to get validation. But validation, that is a bottomless pit. You can never fill it. On the flip side, people who view money as a tool for freedom make highly rational decisions. They use money to build architecture. So if you've ever wondered why so many high-earning professionals feel perpetually poor, it is for sure because they're playing the scoreboard game.
Section 3. The Compounding System.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is that to escape the scoreboard game, we have to look at the raw mechanics of money. Money actually operates on two completely different, totally separate systems. First, you have the spending system. That's your bills, your rent, groceries, lifestyle upgrades. It's a closed loop. You earn, you spend, you earn again. Then you have the compounding system. That's your investments, assets, ownership that actually grows on its own. The hidden code to lasting wealth is just the unglamorous act of consistently routing a portion of your spending system directly into the compounding system, long before it even feels like it's making a difference.
Ray Dalio, who built one of the largest investment firms in the world, is huge on this. He advocates treating this money movement exactly like a machine. It should have repeatable, incredibly boring inputs. In fact, excitement is actually a massive red flag. Excitement is usually where the massive financial losses happen. Thrilling, one-time bets might give you a huge rush, sure, but reliable, unglamorous, automated systems, that is what actually creates generational wealth.
Okay, I want you to imagine a lake covered in lily pads. And let's say these lily pads double in size every single day. If it takes exactly 48 days for the lily pads to cover the entire lake, on what day is the lake exactly half covered? Take a second. It's not day 24. It is day 47. For the first 46 days, the lake looks totally empty. You can barely even see the growth. And then, seemingly overnight, the whole thing fills completely.
So the crucial point here is that compounding is entirely invisible right up until it does absolutely everything. Like Morgan Housel points out, Warren Buffett's fortune wasn't built on these superhuman annual returns. It was built on an extraordinarily long runway of very ordinary returns, compounded over 70 years. But most people, they quit on day 30. They look at the lake, they see no lily pads, and they just give up right before the math becomes extraordinary.
Finally, Section 4. The Blueprint. 4 Principles of Wealth.
All right, so how do we actually apply this? Well, here is a highly actionable blueprint absolutely anyone can use starting today to reorganize their relationship with money. Number 1, protect before you grow. Cut out the predictable mistakes like high-interest debt and emotional spending. Number 2, build architecture, not just income. Make absolutely sure there's a gap between what you earn and what you spend, and route that gap straight into something that compounds. Getting a raise means literally nothing if your lifestyle just inflates to match it. Number 3, detach your self-worth from your spending. We've got to stop buying things to impress people who aren't even paying attention to us. And number 4, give it time it doesn't feel like it deserves. Remember the lily pads. Just survive until day 47.
Bringing this all full circle, back to that dinner in Chicago, those 1923 billionaires who met such tragic ends, they had extraordinary income. They had absolute mountains of money, but they had zero architecture. They had big numbers in a bank account, but they possessed no code governing how those numbers should behave. They were playing this highly visible, loud game that eventually completely consumed them. And that's totally unlike the quiet builders, the school teachers, the disciplined investors who played the long, unglamorous game that actually pays out.
You really don't need a massive windfall to start using this code. You just need the discipline to start building quietly while everyone else is out there performing loudly. So I'm going to leave you with this one vital question to ask yourself today. Are you just building an income, or are you building an architecture? Start building your system today, however small it is, so that you can finally reach your own day 47. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.